morning, guys. This is our Mason. What is this? Number 4. Number 4. It may not be released as the 4th episode. It's going to be called episode 4. Episode 3.
Yes, it'll be 3.
3 or 4. I'm joined with my 2 very, very good friends, Bob and Glenn Bob.
That's right.
The Alfieri boys from. We have a new sponsor for the show. I call it a show because I only watch this on YouTube. I don't listen to it on a podcast. It's a show.
Mm-hmm.
New sponsor called Statewide Food Equipment.
That's right.
And I woke up at 3:47 this morning, and I thought of a tagline.
Okay.
And it was, at Statewide Food Equipment, it's more than just a name, because we do business in Florida and Ohio.
You've never struggled more with a tagline for a business than Statewide.
You've been working on that for a year or two.
Give them the background on that.
Then I thought about something about cutting, because it's cutting.
So our other business, we sell and service food processing equipment, so slicers and grinders and things like that.
Cutting the legs off the competition, and then it was.
Like that.
Cut the bullshit and let's talk turkey,
hey,
right? Or ham, salami, or capicola.
There you go.
Perfect.
Right?
Perfect.
No, so anyway, I've known these guys since we started Boss, probably shortly after. Glenn, I was working on my duck boat in my barn. It was cold out. Would it still have been the fall of 18? Or was it into 19?
Yeah, I mean, it was right away. As soon as it kind of, you guys went public, I tried to start, or
like an IPO.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
Big
as,
time.
Advertising and whatnot, that we heard whispers that there was a Michigan-based shotgun shell company. As a Michigan-based duck call company, we wanted to, reach out, and that's kind of where you and I talked. I think the first time we talked for a good...
A label printer.
Yeah.
On a meat scale, or something.
Well, yeah. So our other business, we sell and service food processing equipment. We also do deli scales and label printers. So I kind of told you about both of our businesses, and you said that you needed a label printer for the boxes of ammo to put,
That's right.
the 3-inch number 5s or
so
whatever.
That would have been like our first year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was right away. I mean, the shells that I have a lot of the original stuff that you sent.
So, Bob.
Yes.
Tell the story of how you got into the call business, but almost more importantly, I want to know how did you even get to that point?
Well,
where does it start?
When I started the business,
what year would this have been?
I started the call company in '99.
I'm talking statewide. Let's go back. Let's go before that.
Statewide 1990.
90.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Glenn was
2.
You were 1 when I opened the company up, and I had worked for another person for 17 years, and I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was just about ready to go under, and decided, great idea, I'm going to go in business for myself, right?
Right.
So I opened the company up with probably less than $10,000.
And you were distributing.
Yep, and I
food
ended
equipment.
up. Yeah, I just was distributing food equipment, and then so I.
Who was your first big sale or that transaction that you said, you know what, this is going to work?
Arby's.
How soon into it? Which, by the way,
right
is one
away.
of my favorite sandwiches. That Glenn refuses.
And I really promote it. They're a great company.
No, right away. I created a service program, a preventative maintenance program that no one in the industry were doing, and no one believed in it because how can you drive 400 miles, and make any money? Well, the thing is you get enough. I ended up with 125 stores with the Arby's on a 3-month.
Where is their corporate at?
Their corporate used to be in Flint.
Okay. Really?
Yes.
Headquartered in Michigan.
Yeah, well, the Michigan headquarters.
Okay. Yep.
And so.
And those were all like franchise franchise stores.
Yeah, they had corporate stores, and then they had a bunch of franchise stores.
Okay.
So there was 125 of them, and then I went through a sales program. I did my testing with them and such, and created this program that I knew how much money that they would spend a year, on a
Per store.
Yeah, per store,
Okay.
on a maintenance
Like
thing.
down to like how much they were slicing per day,
yeah.
the weight, the waste,
Yeah.
the efficiency, like all that stuff.
And these
So-
are automatics, or like the one that you gave me?
These were automatics.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So, so we created this program, and
And who was the service guy? You?
me, yeah, and I had another guy, and I'd be gone for 3-4 days, on the road, and then come back, and Judy, my wife, she helped, she created a website, Angel Fire back then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we
yeah.
thought we were high tech.
Mason, you remember that? Angel Fire?
And she did all the books and stuff like that, and, we were running 17-hour days,
created
Yeah.
the invoices, the work orders,
Yeah,
all
we
that stuff.
created
Because she was
everything.
pretty
Yeah.
tech savvy even
Yeah.
back then, so she
Yeah.
did all the
So
computer work.
She wasn't working. She quit her job, and she had to because we couldn't afford healthcare. I mean childcare.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
she had to take care of the kids. So we would do all this stuff at night, and then I'd hit the road at 4:00 in the morning, and I'd be gone, and it just became
So did you were a waterfowl hunter before this, yeah?
yeah.
So did you have to put that in hold?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for like
Well,
5
you
years? or
started
how
as an
long?
Yeah.
upland hunter.
I started as a big time upland hunter. I mean,
Okay.
I was addicted to pheasant hunting, and I mean,
How many years do you have to shelve that?
probably 5 years
sold,
before.
and he was also a competitive skeet
Yeah,
shooter
and
too, and
yeah.
sold all of his guns.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
And one of those was
yeah, we talked about that
Yeah.
on the way here.
Springfield Model
Springfield
67.
67.
Yes, yeah, we were just talking about that.
So,
Yeah.
Have you shot that yet?
I have not, no, because I had all this.
can I tell the story about that?
Yeah, go for it.
So I always hear these stories about, again, when we started or when he started the company, and talked about these guns that he had to sell to keep things going and put food on the table for my sister and I. And as he told me these stories and I got older, I started writing these things down, because in my head I was like, one day I want to get these for him. And so I would always have to ask these stories, and he wouldn't know why I was asking. And so I reached out to Brandon about this specific, it was a Model 67, right?
Yes.
And I said, Brandon, I'm trying to locate one of these with your resources. I figured you'd be able to help it. He laughed, and he's like, I have one and you can have it. And it come to find out it was your grandfather's.
Yeah.
And we gave it to him this year, and it was during a time where it was really needed to, and it was
A little extra motivation.
it was a little extra motivation, and
yeah.
So it means a lot from you giving us your locating that was in your safe. Then
I recall visiting my grandpa at my grandpa and father's plating business back in the mid 80s when I was a really little kid, and it was sitting in his office, just leaned up against, like, behind the door. You're a little kid, like, oh, there's a gun there, kind of,
Yeah.
right? And really what it wasn't like self-defense. It was him and my dad would go goose hunting in the morning. They'd come back to the shop and go to work, and just have it right there in the office. So that was my first memory of it. Then I remember it being in my house like 5 years later, next to my dad's 870. He had a Wingmaster. It was really nice. Still have it. And then somehow, when my dad died, Mom sold that house, moved out. I took the gun. It was just sitting in a vault at the shop, and it served its purpose to me. And like, it's just an object. It's not like it's got sentimental value, but it served its purpose, and to be able to pass that on to like someone who's going to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that son of a bitch kicks like a fucking mule. Anyway, so like, good on you to have fun shooting it. But no. So it's just it's a cheap gun, right?
it was just the sentimental side of it.
It's a good story. So
Yeah.
What other guns did you have that you had to sell?
Oh, geez. I sold all my skeet guns. I had a Model 3200 tube set. All my 1100s that I had, I sold those.
Rotwell was
I
it?
had a Rotwell, yeah. That was my second tubed gun. I shot that very, very well, and had to get rid of that. I sold everything,
All on an idea and a dream, right?
Yeah. So
Well, it's kind of the
failure
whole.
is not an option.
No, and I always and one of the things I've said it before, maybe here, and everyone here knows, hungry dogs hunt well.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So my buddy, good friend of mine, who I'll have him on one of these times. He's a fifth group operator, retired at Chief Warrant 4, like way up there. And I had him come in, and he gave a speech to the local football team before the Salute to Service night that we sponsored. And he told a story about like the jungle tiger. And it's real similar like the hungry dog, but that was like the hungry dog on steroids with the jungle tiger story. But yeah, failure's not an option, especially when you got young kids.
Yep.
And that the business startups, all the late nights, the stress, anxiety, all that shit that goes in. Hopefully, it pays off. It pays off. It pays off, and then it does.
It does.
And then you end up getting the idea to do it all over again. And that's kind of what you guys did with GK. So how did that turn into?
Well,
how did you wind up with GK?
I was watching a hunting program. I think it was MUCC, and they were talking about goose calling and this and that. And there was this guy named Todd Sabota, and he lived in Adrian, and I found out he was going to be at it was Bay City for a calling that's where they used to have a state competition. So I went there.
At this time, you transitioned. So you sold all your trap stuff out of Upland, statewide, humming along. You kind of pivot to goose hunting.
I started goose hunting and duck hunting, and I had a guy who belonged to it was a gander club in Canada, and there were 10 guys in the club, and the membership wasn't that much money, and so he took me over there, and I got hooked. I got hooked. And I'm like, how am I going to afford this, right? So the wheels start turning. So then Todd Sabota comes along with a goose call, and I was like, so I want to open up a business, so I can sell this product, so I can afford to pay for my habit.
Same.
So I did it. Yeah. And Todd and I became extremely good friends.
So was GK what? Was it a business at that point?
So we started as Wing Feather.
I started.
That was the name of our business, and we sold supplies. So we sold ammo, we sold layout blinds, we sold silhouettes 20 years ago before they were cool.
We would have sold Boss.
We sold. We were selling, Tim Ground's half breeds.
Yeah. Okay.
We were selling
Bill Saunders.
Big Guy's Best Duck calls with Mike Keller back in the day.
Yep.
Okay. And we were selling Todd's calls.
And how were you selling this? Just at shows?
We were doing Point Moulet, Bay City, and all the
no online reach. No online.
Yep,
Angel Fire.
Angel Fire.
Okay.
Yep. The funny thing is about that,
you can still find it. Yeah.
The first two guys that ever bought goose calls from me, they're still friends of mine today.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Billy Bales and Chad.
Yep.
So how did Wing Feather morph into GK then?
So we were doing all these shows, and the biggest change that happened was Cabela's in Dundee was built. So Cabela's
that'd have been like 2002, 2003.
Yes.
Yep.
So they started doing all the same trade shows. Like even big Cabela's started doing Bay City, Point Moulet. And so we would go to these shows, and we were selling the same stuff, but we were competing with the prices. They were buying containers. We were buying pallets.
Mm-hmm.
So at these shows, it became this like where you had to do a lap every hour to see what people were knocking their prices down for. We were selling, final approach layout blinds and all these things, but it just became this price war at all these shows. And that's when we said, okay, let's, this isn't going to work because we can't compete with this. Obviously they don't do shows anymore, but they were trying to get a name for themselves in Michigan.
Right.
And so we said, okay, let's focus our time and money on the call side of things, and Todd was kind of getting out of it at the time and had a lot going on with work, and we said, okay, we'll buy the original Giant Killer goose call design. We had one goose call that he had created that we were selling.
At this point he'd won some.
Yeah, he was an extremely good caller, and the funny thing is that he was blowing Tim Ground's flute, so all his competitions that he won, he basically had won them with the flute call, and then he came out with this prototype, and then a couple of guys, George Lynch.
Reed.
Yeah, short reed.
Yep.
Okay.
And then George Lynch was blowing it, and George won some competitions with the call and stuff. And then,
this is before Lynch Mob, all that stuff.
Yeah, this is all
Todd
before,
and George were best friends and both lived in Adrian.
They both worked in the same place.
Okay.
And then what happened was, Todd was going through some tough things, and we had become a dealer at that point, and we were doing all the shows and stuff like that. And Todd said one day, he goes, why don't you buy me out? And I thought, well, how am I going to do this, So he had $10,000 worth of inventory. So I made him a deal. So I bought the inventory, and it was on a payment plan. Because I didn't have the money,
Right.
And so we paid him off, and then it just kept. And at that time,
that's when the name changed.
That's
so we
when the name
transitioned
And you
from,
phased out of the
So
wing
we got
feather.
rid of wing feather, and then we transitioned to GK, which is Giant Killer, the original, name of the call.
Which was a flute.
Yes.
No, that was a short reed.
No, that was a short reed.
So
Yeah.
he
That was a short
transitioned
reed.
to the short reed, and then he started winning with that.
So did he come out with that like shortly after Grounds was doing his and Foils came out with his? And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and everyone
Todd
else?
had the prototype. Todd was very good friends with Tim Grounds and stuff, and went down there to his place and stuff, and
Guided together.
and stuff. And then so they had a call that was pretty similar, but apparently Todd's design was before Tim's, on the Giant Killer, the original.
Okay.
And Tim was really big into the half breed and the flutes at that time, and then started transitioning in different calls. Well, what happened was he just, Todd actually became really good friends with Fred Zink. And so Fred was making a lot of promises to Todd, and they were going filming together and this and that. And Todd ended up, using his product and stuff like that, which wasn't really good for. So I think that was part of it.
For his own stuff. He had his
his
own,
own
but he was
stuff.
He had his
using
own.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, Glenn and Glenn was, I think, 12 when he did the first show with me,
Yeah.
and I had no idea. I didn't know how to blow a call, So I got the best guys around, and I'm like, hey, you want to do this? You want to do that? And Paul was one of them, and it just kind of transitioned from there. Learned how to blow a call. I mean, I used to go to the store and I'd buy a half breed, right?
Yeah,
and
I had one.
and
Yeah.
I had a tape, and I go in my basement, and I get it out of the package,
Yeah.
and I couldn't make a sound out of it, and I'm like, well, there's something wrong with this
Until you get that thing to break the first
yeah,
time.
yeah.
After
So
that, you get it figured out.
it was
Yeah.
it was like a light switch.
Well, and we had, doing these shows for so long, like we had such a great relationship with all those guys.
Oh, yeah.
GK would not be here today if it wasn't for Tim Grounds.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
for,
I think a lot of people
well,
would be were
not
there
only
if it
like
wasn't Tim.
for the short read side of things, but actually helping us. Like he
was that guy. He did it for a
He-
bunch of people,
I-
didn't
he-
he?
I called Tim out of the blue, right? And I said, I was so nervous to call him. And I'm like, Mr. Grounds, 15 minutes later, he's my best friend. He's telling me, he goes, Bob, he says, anything you need? He said, you just tell him, Tim told you. And he had done that for how many years?
Yeah.
I was always true blue, right? I was never the guy. And if I was going to do something, I'd call Tim up and I'd ask him, is this okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to step on.
He was the godfather, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
still have a really good relationship with Hunter.
Yeah.
And but again, going back to it is, with the supply side of the business is, we had this great rapport with all call companies. Like it wasn't, it's changed now where you walk down the aisle and some people won't look at you and this, that, like back then we would have a booth next to Zinc and whoever, and we would all go out to dinner. I remember, I tell stories of guys now that are new to it. Like we would go to dinner with 50 people. And Longhorn Steakhouse. I remember, these
Take it
great,
over.
Oh, yeah,
take
it was
over the
just-
whole place. And I remember,
Yep.
sitting as a kid, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever been a part of, and
Yeah.
that's when I fell in love with it. It was just this, again, it was, and then the next morning you walk by, you all knuckle each other, good
Yep.
luck, and then you did it again.
Yep.
It wasn't like this big
No, there was
clicky.
No, there was no cliques. We were all best friends.
And we're still like
So
that. We're
what
still,
year was that?
99 is when I started.
so that was
then-
probably like
2002,
3.
we started hitting
Yep.
all the shows.
And then that's when, like, the trajectory, we started getting,
So did Cabela's, were they open before? I thought that Dundee was like
99 is when we started the wing feather.
Yeah.
okay.
So then,
so that
yeah,
does jive. It would have been early 2000s
right,
when
yeah.
Cabela's went in.
So then we transitioned to GK in early 2000s, like once we had that, once we saw that. So, and then as we, started gaining steam with the new call, we added a duck call and then a competition goose call. And that's when guys like, Paul Hinman came along and Scott Rumble and Wade Walling, and we started getting Tony Kashkara. We started, rolling and going to every competition in the United States and Canada.
And we started winning.
Yeah.
Who was the first one that won big time? Was it Wade?
Wade.
He won the world in '08.
Okay.
And then he won the champion of champions in 2010.
And there was only 4 companies at that time that had ever done that.
That won the champion of champions because it only happened every 5 years.
And we had one.
Who was it? Who were the 4?
I don't remember. Was it Tim?
It was Grounds. I think it was Sean Mann.
I don't know the first two.
I can't remember the other ones, but that was a big achievement. If
you guys and one other.
Yeah, if you weren't winning competitions, you weren't selling calls back then. It wasn't,
How did work? So before like Facebook and all the social media platforms, it was like chat rooms and
it
not
was
chat rooms, but like pages or whatever.
Flock Knockers.
Yeah, Flock Knockers
was a huge forum.
Refuge Forum.
The Refuge Forum.
Yep.
That was your main source of advertising.
You lived and died by those.
You
things.
lived and died by those, and the other
yeah.
big one was Calling Ducks because that was the forum that told you who won. So it was a big like points game. It was like NASCAR. Like you could see like Wade had this many points and this many points. So your name in those top 5 was a big deal then.
You'd win a competition and then come home and then all the orders
Everybody
started
would
coming in.
Yeah,
just like that.
Well, even at the shows themselves, like you would sit with bated breath at the booth and be like, oh, God, I hope our guys win today. And then it's like, okay, like let's sell
and then
now.
They just sort of kind of flocked in, and
Yeah.
it became. The great thing about it was we met so many people in the industry, and I traveled a lot. I did shows in California. We always did game fair,
SHOT Show.
We probably did 30,000 miles a year on shows. Along with running statewide.
Right.
So it was like it was burning in at both ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at one point, Judy said to me, she goes, I think you need to take a little break,
But you never did.
I never did.
Well, because then I went away to school, and I was his main helper,
Yeah.
and I went to college for 4 years, from 06 to 2010.
Yeah. So all the shows after summer,
I couldn't
do
help
that.
him, and so he was.
We used to build product after we got done with statewide. So 11 o'clock at night, I had an upstairs in my building, had the lathe up there, all that stuff, and
So you were turning all your stuff up there?
Yeah.
Who was turning it?
I had a couple of guys. We had
Like
a
with
lathe.
templates?
We had,
or
no,
just
we had
template?
Michigan machinists, like a guy, like a CNC shop.
Yeah.
We were
Okay.
doing all the finish work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in finish
like
polish-
flame polishing.
Yeah,
all
we
that.
had to do all the sanding,
Tuning,
everything. I had to, we got into wood calls and stuff. I had to learn how to finish wood calls. It was just a nightmare, a nightmare. And everybody wanted a wood call. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
there with my finger trying to figure out, is it better this way? I try to dip them. I try to paint them.
Hang them, yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, I had
And then-
hangers it was.
And then in 2010, when I graduated, I was all gung ho, excited to like, okay, let's get back into this, call company. Let's start
ready to
rolling.
sell it.
And he wanted, he wanted to be done with it. Like, and so we clashed a bit with, because obviously out of college you have all these
Blind
fresh,
ambition.
well,
Yeah.
the blind ambition, and you
Yeah.
have all these newfangled ideas that you learned in social media, and that was all stuff that he wasn't,
By that time, in 2010, had that market already started to change?
Yes.
And I think I know, but tell me how, in your mind, in all actuality, did it change, and when did that happen?
Probably when really when the internet started,
Really booming, like
when
Oaf.
it really started booming, and
Yeah.
people were really paying attention to it and stuff. And because you never heard of callers that were in Utah or Southern Illinois. I mean, there was only a handful of guys really that you knew. There was probably, when you used to go to a competition, there would be 40 to 50 top-notch callers, and then and they were spread out from all over.
And
the
how many
country.
call companies?
At that time, let's say 15.
That's
but
it.
not at a show would be like 6 to 8.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
Just
among the
just-
competition, those
just
guys.
the main guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then when the show started and stuff, all of a sudden, anybody who had a lathe, and they had some talent, they started coming out with calls. There's probably
And the desire to pay for their hunting trips and decoys and
Well,
ammo and
and-
shotguns.
yeah,
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And we saw, we would go to, there was a show in Burlington, Iowa. We would go every year. It was the Mississippi
Did
Valley.
you guys quit going to that one a couple
They
years
stopped
ago?
doing
they
it.
stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Did they really?
It was
We
an
used
awesome
to do
show.
that was
it was
our
the best.
highest show in
Did
10 hours.
COVID killed that
Yes,
one, right?
it did. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but that
That's
going
where the
back-
doc's at.
What's that?
Our doctor buddy, right? Is that where you met him at?
Which doctor, buddy?
The dentist.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Burlington?
Yeah. But anyway, going back to that show,
Doc Spear.
Yep, we would go there, and there would be 5 or 6 of the main guys.
Yeah.
And we did it one year where there was 23 call makers.
Yeah.
And it was, that's where we really saw the change is they would, we would try to bring 100 to 150 calls to a show. Tuned, ready to go.
Yeah. And the calls, the prices were. They haven't really changed that
much.
much.
No,
they haven't changed.
$150.
Yeah, I'll tell you a short story when you finish up.
Yeah. So all I was going to say is that we went to a show one year where there was six call companies. The next year there was 23, and then the next year there was 6 again. But it was just became this fad of, again, it's online, and you started learning how to make these calls. So guys they didn't look at their time as money, right? Like labor was free to them. So they would create 12 calls, and if they would go sell them for $60 a call, they thought they were like, I'm making money. But then when you have to make another 12 and another 12, and then, but now, okay, time is money. You can't keep up. That's where the labor isn't free, and that's where I think a lot of where they started, and then they weaned out.
I'll tell you a short story about that. So we were in Burlington. And there was this call maker next to me, and he had, his calls looked pretty good, They were $75. And at the end of the show, he come up to me because he said, I don't understand this. I said, what do you mean? He said, I didn't sell any calls. He said, you had people standing in line to buy calls at $150. And I said, it's a perception. I said,
raise your prices, kid.
What if it's too cheap, then there must be something wrong with it, right? So the next year, the guy's back at the show, right? He's not selling calls. No, he's selling puppies. He said I couldn't do it. And I said, yep, I know.
Yeah.
But it was, and I always thought, $150 for a call. Well, Zinc or Grounds, when he first came out with the Soup Mag, it was $200, in the 90s, that was a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Like you didn't tell your girlfriend or your wife about, I bought a $200 goose call,
Right. Well, I remember my first. So I bought the half breed.
Yeah.
But that was a different kind of plastic. It was almost like a nylon or a hard acetal or something.
He didn't.
I think the first one's probably prototyped out of like PVC.
It was.
They were.
Was.
Yeah. I actually seen the first one.
So this would, well, I don't know, depending on time and years or whatever, but this would have been like 2002.
Yeah, early, yep.
Yeah.
2002. And then that call was economical. I bought it at Gander Mountain for like $65.
Yeah.
Then my roommate had a Foils, straight meat honker, and that was $150.
Yep.
So I bought one of those, and then saved my money, and then I bought $125, saved $25, bought the straight meat mallard.
Okay.
And those might have been still serialized before Jeff really hit it big time and quit numbering all of them.
Mm-hmm. We were across from him the first year that he introduced his calls, and it was at Point Moulet. Mm-hmm. And he was in Fred Zink's booth, and he was off to the side, and he was leaned up against his pickup truck,
selling them out the back of the truck.
Selling them out the back of his truck, yeah. And that's how that started for him.
So it was always a tight-knit group, like all those original companies.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was always tight.
It was.
It was always the same guys, we traveled to all the shows, and then, like all those guys were competition callers too at one time,
and guides.
And then they all guided together in Michigan, with Grounds and Zinc and Foils and
Sonny Jackson, Jackson, Michigan.
Yep.
He had all the pits down there.
And Todd, all those guys guided together. So they were all super close. And then, again, I've heard Hunter talk too. Like his dad gave away a lot of,
industry knowledge.
And I think I heard him on the Big Honker podcast, talking about it. And it's like, I wish he said, maybe he wouldn't have given away all the secrets, because he was the godfather.
Well, I think whenever there's anything innovative, that there's going to be someone that's going to come in and try to do like the Me Too thing.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Right. So as long as if you have a relationship with the guy that does that, I think long term it builds more credibility and strength among those product lines.
He's the best.
We built our company, the company on customer service, loyalty, and just I think we were one of the first people who gave a lifetime warranty on our product, no questions asked. I had a guy who I was doing these box elder burl, really fancy calls and stuff, and they, I think I was getting $250 for him at that time or something like that, and he bought a call. He was in Iowa, and the guy, he calls me up and he said I broke my call, and I said okay. I said what happened? He goes, well, I'm going to be honest with you. He said my dog got a hold of it, and he chewed the insert.
My dog ate my call.
And I said, you know what? I said, I appreciate your honesty. I said, I sent him a brand new call. He couldn't believe that. I said, that's how we do it.
Yeah.
And I've always been that way. I got burned a couple times. I got burned by a group in Montreal who would call me up, and these guys said like, hey, I lost my insert. I fell out. I'm like, okay. So I said, no problem. So I sent him an insert. I thought, bad O-rings, whatever it was. Well, where are you at? And he'd tell me, whatever city he was, and I'd ship it to him. Well, 10 days later, I got another call from the same area, a different guy. Hey, I lost the barrel on my call.
No, they weren't.
Oh yeah, they were. Yeah, and it just kind of clicked on me. I'm like, that's kind of odd, So I started questioning him, and he just hung up on me.
Did they ever get to build a full call or no?
No.
They only got the two parts.
They only got two. They only got the insert. Yeah.
You never shipped the barrel.
I never shipped the barrel because I figured it out.
Well, we've had the same guys do that. They wanted to become a dealer.
Yeah.
Just to get.
Oh, I got burned. I got burned on a rep. He took. I gave him a couple $1,000s worth of product, and he just disappeared.
It seems like whenever you're dealing, there's always going to be those guys out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't really know transitioning from like automotive job shop manufacturing, metal finishing, that kind of thing with a relatively fixed customer base.
Yep.
You start doing business with the general public. There's people that come out of the woodwork that from the drop have nothing but the worst intentions for you.
Yep.
And it takes you get burned a handful of times where you get smart.
Times you get real smart.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't want to end up being like this negative, jaded person.
And I never,
And some days it's harder than others.
Brandon,
Really
I've always done business on a handshake. To this day, I still do it. And I've been burned with both companies, but I still do it with a handshake.
Yeah.
I'm just a better judge of character nowadays.
Yeah.
It took me a while. It was the hunger, the scared, being scared that if I didn't, this could be a big opportunity.
That's right.
You learn the hard way.
I look back, like even the business decisions I made 6 months ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago are vastly different than like what I'm going to think about tomorrow.
Yep.
And it's just weird. Like you almost look back, like almost embarrassed. Like I can't believe that's how I did that, or that's what I was doing back then.
I was the same way.
I think that when I get to a point of saying, looking back, like on 6 month decisions, if there's nothing I can do better, I probably should hang it up because I've lost focus on what I need to be doing. It's always moving forward. But
Glenn's good on the focus part now. I don't focus so much. I just I sit back and I listen, and if I don't like something, we talk about it.
So there was a couple years ago we did like a special run of my favorite duck call.
Yep.
The Mallard Slayer.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you guys get in the duck call business then?
Well, we were forced into
a necessary evil, right? Like
unnecessary evil.
They want that pair. Like I wanted foils, straight meat honker, straight meat.
Yeah,
you just become.
I mean, you become a brand. With the waterfall industry is like if you have a goose call, anybody that specializes in either has world championships in duck calls, they're going to come out with a goose call, and vice versa. So you just, and then also brand loyalty where, our guys that are competing in, duck or goose calling competitions want to start competing in duck, like, Paul and a lot of our guys, like they had, so we came out with a Main Street duck call so they could compete at Stuttgart with it. And, we had guys over the years that, including Paul and Dan Foster and guys that would go down to, Stuttgart and compete. And again, a necessary evil because not only do you want to be brand loyal where, when we started, pro staff was a big deal. So you didn't want one guy wearing, your GK goose call and then wearing a, big guy's best duck call.
Right.
You wanted them to, have that brand. So That's where we.
So the first call that you guys made was called what? What was that?
The first goose call,
Duck call.
mallard killer.
Mallard killer, yeah.
And that one doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't, but it does, right? I still have a lot of parts for that.
We have considered doing a retro run of it.
So the Mallard Slayer is a poured version of the Element. Is that right?
The Element is we do the Element in in a poured version as well, but it's a different.
I can't keep this straight.
Yeah, the inserts are the same. The barrels are different, but the Mallard Slayer, the Element can all be made in whatever material. You really
is the geometry the same between the Mallard Slayer and the Element?
the insert.
The insert geometry same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
So
Different
but
on the barrel.
what's that?
They're a little different on the barrel.
The barrel's different.
Correct.
Yep.
And just the geometry is different.
Yes. Yep.
So but the Mallard Slayer, what I like about that, it's not too loud, not too soft.
And you
Exactly.
like the molded version. You
mold
don't
is that like
hand poured.
hand poured?
We don't injection mold any of our calls.
Hand poured acrylic
Yep.
versus the turned acrylic.
Yep.
Correct.
Different sound.
Totally different sound, way
Yeah.
smoother, I think.
Yeah.
And it's identical geometry.
Correct.
The
Yes.
difference that softens that call is just the nature
Material.
of the
Yep.
poured acrylic.
Yep.
You know, it's weird because when
Did I ever tell you? I told Glenn a bunch of times. Did I ever tell you a story about the first year hunting at my duck club with
I know what you're good.
the Mallard Slayer?
No.
I never told you this.
No.
So I'm going to tell it to you how I saw it happen.
Okay.
And research and years later makes me think that maybe it might not be 100% accurate because there's a genetic issue.
I think I said that when you first told me the story, but
So it was
It's
like
interesting
foggy
nonetheless.
morning, my first year at this duck property. So this would have been late October 2020.
Yeah.
And just like boss is rolling, found this property. One of my buddies, Greg Manier, sent me the real estate listing on Facebook Messenger. It's 11 o'clock at night. I look at this listing. I show my wife. We're laying in bed. She's like, "You should go buy it." I'm like, "I don't know. It's a lot of money." She says, "Well, you started the business to be able to travel and hunt. Now you're working all the time. You're not traveling.
Yep.
This place is an hour away. I think you should go look at it." That was on a Wednesday night. Thursday morning, I called the realtor. Friday, went and looked at it, put the offer in on Saturday, and then we tried to close so I could hunt that next weekend. But it didn't quite work. We had to give him one more week. So this would have been like maybe the second or third weekend. And when we went out and viewed the property, it was just like an insane amount of birds. Ducks, geese, cranes, everything, you name it. And I said, I got to have this. And oddly enough, the more we try to manage the habitat and improve the hunting, we kill fewer and fewer birds every year, but there's more of them that use it in the spring.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I know
So
how that works.
yeah. So we're out there hunting, and I'm on like this point of one of the fingers on the north side of the property, northeast corner, and it's foggy, and I can hear Drake Mallard, and I'm hitting this Mallard Slayer, and I'm talking to this thing back and forth, and we're just having this conversation for like, it seemed like 5 minutes, but it could have been like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? Not that long. Seemed like forever. And I talk this sumbitch, and he comes right and sets up, and I blast him.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that his pecker is hard as a watchdog's jawbone. And I said, this damn call sounded so good. I got that duck so wound up. Right?
I think you
Like,
called me
man,
from the
yeah.
blind.
I
and
did.
Ordered like 20 of them.
I did. I'm like, hey,
He's
we
like,
got to
I
have
want
more of these.
every
This
one of my
thing- this
friends
thing's
to have
awesome.
one of these. Yeah.
Well, because it's a cheap call. What do
Yeah.
those things sell for?
Yeah.
$60,
60
yeah.
bucks, yeah.
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 I think it's a
Yeah.
best value for a duck call. I love it.
We still sell a ton of those,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, we're
Well, you
doing
had
a
them when we were at that. The first time I met you was at the
Woods and Waters.
Bay
Woods
City.
and Water Bay City.
Yeah.
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 And then again later on, we went to the.
Bay City was first when you first got the bus.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
That was the first
yeah.
show, and then we did Woods and Water together right next to
and
each
you
other.
brought the
That
bus
was
there.
in Imlay City.
Yeah.
Imlay. So Woods and the first one was Bay City.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At that
that's
state
the
park.
first weekend in August.
And you guys
always.
had those mallard slayers lined up.
Yep.
I thought it was the coolest call you had with the
Yep.
wood barrel and all that whole thing. But really, it turned out to be. Do you really think it was? Was it just like a prolapsed pecker?
I mean, you keep telling that story and keep selling calls for us. Whatever you want to believe, I'll believe.
I haven't done it since.
I like that. Can I use that story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. I'll be using that this year.
We'll clip this.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna hear. You want to hear a story about that call?
Well, and I think personally, I think that, and again, as this company's grown, I've hunted less and less and less, but I think that maybe calls are too loud.
Yeah.
At least where we hunt.
Yeah.
I think, especially early in the season, us catching what flight birds we do catch,
Yep.
they're not like super pressured.
Yeah.
They're just doing their own thing.
Right.
And I think that softer
More
call,
natural,
it could have been that thing couldn't have hurt, like didn't know. It could have been the fog, whatever.
Sure.
And it could have just been dumb luck. But it seems like I always killed more ducks with that call.
Yeah, it's price point and sound. Like you just can't beat it. So we've sold.
But I like the single read.
Yeah, it can be tuned either way.
We were Glenn was he was still in college. I think maybe it was going to be his last year. We went out on the ice in Rondo Bay with
Where's that?
In Ontario.
Okay.
With our buddy Scott Rumble, and so we took Glenn out there and we said,
Is that where the rumbler comes from?
Yeah.
that's where the Rumble.
Our buddy's
comes from.
named Scott Rumble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just put that
He's
together.
got a dog. He's a great dog trainer and stuff. Really good, really good friend. Talk to him every day. And anyhow, long story short, we set up in the morning, and then all of a sudden the ice started coming in, and it came in like it came in, and by the time we got out, got everything picked up and put out, we had an inch of ice on the water, and then we got the closer we got to shore, the thicker the ice was.
Yeah. Like the launch, it was 100 yards or so. I mean, probably more, 200 yards.
Yeah.
To shore was iced out.
Yeah.
And Scott's a smaller guy, and I was taking him like a battering ram until I tried to break the ice. I was holding him by his waders.
Right? So we had a 18-foot beaver tail and with a 35 horse gator tail on the back, right, with a reverse.
Okay.
I thought, we need a reverse when I bought that.
Saved our lives.
Saved our lives.
You chew through the ice?
We were
literally-
able to get back out the little area
out.
that we cut through,
We backed out, and then we
had to go to a different
Then we
launch,
had to drive, take the boat, 7 miles down the bay to Shrewsbury.
I don't even remember the name of the launch.
To get out of the water.
To get out, we were running on fumes. Like we had no.
We literally
fuel left.
got the gas can when we got there. We're like, how did this
It
even
was empty,
out? Yeah.
right? And Scott calls. It was the Rondo Bay Park.
Because it was a draw, draw, like
Okay,
a lottery. So there was
GME
guys.
type,
Yeah.
He called the guy in the office and said, "Hey, look, we're stuck over here." So he sent another guy that I used to hunt with, and drove all the way over there, picked us up. Then we got our vehicle,
Grabbed
brought it
the
back
keys
down.
with the
trailer,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was an ordeal. We get back to Scott's house. He lives in Ridgetown, and it was probably 2:00 at that time. There were hundreds and hundreds of mallards in this cornfield, and they were pouring in. Right. He said, "Come on, we got to go get set up." So we get set up
Because we didn't kill anything that
Yeah.
morning.
So Rumble and I were using mallard slayers, right? And we're letting him shoot, and we're trying to video and blow the call and
'cause
stuff
he had-
like that.
I mean,
Yep.
and this was like we have the video somewhere.
Did
but
you
it
guys
was
ever
like,
do your own videos and that was the big thing?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I bought high tech camera and stuff, and it was a joke. Like, how come you didn't get that? I dropped the camera to shoot the goose.
Did you ever produce a video?
No.
Do you still have all the old footage?
Yeah,
That'd
I
be
do.
cool
Yeah.
to like.
There was
that'd
a
be cool
period
to
of
play
time
with.
where-
On a little, I don't know what size tapes they were.
I remember
but-
what you're talking about. Like
Yeah.
the 8mm or
Yeah,
whatever.
I paid $5,000 for that camera.
Well, there was a period of time too where like
And people say stuff's more expensive now. They didn't know how expensive new technology
no,
was back then.
no,
I remember when those
no.
cameras came out because the old way,
yeah.
you take an actual VHS cassette and have that bastard on your
It-
shoulder.
Yep,
right?
had one of them too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, there was a period of time too where we kind of had to make a decision too, where the calling circuit was important, but then videos got really important. Like if you didn't have your video every year, so we had to really decide: did we want to be on the road from September 1st till end of February every year? But we had this other company, we had Statewide. And so we had to make this decision, and we just decided that it wasn't for us. We didn't want to turn hunting into a job. We still wanted to enjoy the hunting side of it. So we grinded through, again, maybe we could have got bigger, maybe not, who knows? Like, it's all speculation now, but we're 26 years later, we're still doing it. So
could you imagine if if you would have said, screw the meat slicers and all this stuff, let's go make calls instead?
Thank God we didn't do that.
Yeah, thank God we didn't do that. Yeah.
But we would have never met, So,
Yeah. Well, are you saying you wouldn't have been around in 18?
Yeah, exactly what I'm
Been
saying.
selling cars or something. Huh?
Yeah, we would have both been working for Ford.
Yeah.
So do you guys still do Arby's or no?
Yeah.
Do you really?
I still have my first Arby's customer, and that's been 35 years.
I tell you what.
I still have the same customer. I lost him for a period of 6 months one time, and it was Labor Day. It was the day before Labor Day, and he called me up and he said, Bob, he said, this isn't working out. He goes, I need you. He goes, my machines are broke.
After they canceled everything.
After they canceled, they hired a service guy, right, to go
Local,
through.
yeah.
Local guy, right?
Yeah.
It didn't work out because he didn't know what he was doing,
How many slicers would Arby have?
2. One in the
Okay.
front, one in the
Front
back,
line,
right?
Okay.
And all his machines were broke down. I went there on Labor Day, and I did the run. He had 13 stores.
Saturday afternoon, you're servicing his
I'm
stuff.
servicing. Yeah. And he sort of grew up with that because what I used to do when I did my Traverse City run, I had 3 stores in Traverse City, right? So I'd go and rent a hotel room.
Heck
and,
yeah.
And the kids
go to the beach.
And they
Our family,
Grand Traverse
our
Resort.
family vacations
Yeah.
were scheduled around
Yes.
preventative maintenance contracts.
Maintenance contracts.
I don't. Maybe. You remember American Spoon?
Yes.
I think
still
that
around.
if
They're
you
still
were
around.
a kid in the 90s and
Yeah.
you traveled to northern Michigan
Yeah.
and you spent a weekend in Traverse City, you had to have those little cup crackers and
Exactly.
the American Spoon jam.
Exactly.
They had them everywhere.
Yeah, they still have them in downtown
Still-
Traverse.
still have
I always
them
get
downtown
the, I always get the lemon
Raspberry.
curd. Yeah.
Lemon curd?
Oh, it's the
raspberry.
All right, so I'll get you some.
Yeah.
We're going there. In
Now we
July.
know the next gift basket. to get 'em.
Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how all that transpired, And we became, I used to go do. They would have 200, 300 people in a hall. They all brought all the Arby's people in. I'd lug a 200-pound machine in. I'd carry it in, put it on the table, and then go through all the safety. I was real big on safety.
So you were selling the machines too?
I was selling machines. Yeah.
How long would a machine last at Arby?
20 years.
So it's a service. If all you're doing is selling equipment,
Exactly.
you're going to die broke.
You're going to die broke. Yeah, you got to service it.
That's where the preventative maintenance contracts
Yeah.
is, because you're guaranteed every, we're in stores still today every 60 days, every 90 days. It just
Yeah.
depends on
Yeah.
how busy you are.
So are you as tall as you are and as lean as you are from eating a lot of Arby sandwiches growing up?
100%. They're a great customer. Thank you, Arby's, for all the business over the years.
Thank you, Arby's.
I'm telling we had Arby's that closed when right in the middle of 5 for 5.
Yeah.
So this had been again early 2000s.
Yeah.
Then it went to 3 for 5,
Yeah.
but they were out of our town by then. It kind of pissed me off. Now they're like $7 for one of them.
Really?
But I'll eat 2 mediums like it's my job.
Well, they went through a really hard
They had
time.
a Big Montana. Remember the Big Montana?
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
at a full half pounder maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
They went through a hard time, though, because when they took a big hit, it would have been like, I'd say in like 06, 05, because Taco Bell came out with the dollar menu. So you could go to Taco Bell and like kids would leave, I remember going in high school, we would go on a half day, you'd go to Taco Bell because you could get a whole bunch of food for $5, where Arby's cost more, but that's what pushed them into the 5 for 5 was that. So they had a period of time where they were like, no, we're going to stick with this $7 sandwich.
They had to
but
have lost their ass at the 5 for 5 because I would eat. That's what I lived on in high school.
Well, that's why, again,
I could
Yeah.
I could drink Arby's sauce. It's so
I
good.
never.
Arby's sauce is
I
great.
was always told when I did the maintenance, so $1 million store, right? They had to do $800 an hour at lunch to be
To hit $1
successful.
million a year.
Yeah. So at the end of the year, they were $1 million and a half. And I never understood that, how they had that big building, and did $1.5 million, but apparently the profits were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to this day, I mean, you look at Subway with, these little, inside of a
gas station.
Yeah.
gas station or whatever, and they're doing a good year for them is 300,000.
But that works.
Yeah.
It works because they buy
Shared
multiple
overhead,
units, right?
yeah,
So they
yeah.
make $30,000 a year or something. They got 10 stores. They're making, they're making some bank. But Yeah, the whole game has changed with that. It's just,
So do you guys do business in Florida? Was I right with the opening intro?
Yep.
Yeah,
So we
we
have
do.
And Ohio?
Yep,
all over the United States
All
now.
over the
We're
United
going
States.
into Colorado this year.
yep. We just did 7 stores in Texas.
So truly it is more than just a name.
Oh.
It is.
Hey, there you go.
That might be it. It took
Hey,
5
hey,
years, but I think I finally cracked it, man.
Our slogan now is quality service doesn't cost, it pays. And I don't know why you don't love that, because I mean that really
It's confusing.
not if you're paying for service.
If your customer has to think about them saving money,
Well, you keep trying. You've tried for good. There's 2 things that you failed at so far.
a gender
A
reveal,
gender
shotgun
reveal,
shell.
a gender reveal shotgun shell. I tried to get for our first kid. He failed at that, and the slogan for statewide. So
I think cut the bullshit and let's talk turkey or ham, or I think that might be a front runner.
all right, let's get it on paper.
If I woke up at 3:47 in the morning with that idea, it's probably worth going.
I love it.
And I had to remember it.
We'll
I
get
woke up,
shirts
I'm like,
made tomorrow.
I love
I'm like, what time is it? Because if I knew the time and the numbers, I could remember what the thought was. And you know what? I didn't fall asleep since. I've been up since 3:40 this morning.
I believe it.
I was
I'm
right
not
there
tired.
with you. I was all excited about coming
So
down here.
we're gonna wrap up here and go to lunch to a place that you don't get to frequent. Let's tell the story real quick. So, Glenn,
Yes.
you and I met in, let's say it's end of 18, early 19.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't meet each other in person until probably 6 months later at that first show.
Mm-hmm.
Then we quickly formed a bond that's almost like,
Brothers?
yeah.
Absolutely.
Then this little thing called the pandemic hit.
Yep.
And right before that, we were at the
I was on a plane February 2020 flying home from.
February 14th.
Yeah.
You flew home on Valentine's Day. How did you get to Michigan? You one-way rental. Did you take a one-way rental?
Yeah. So you didn't want me to. I can't remember what it was. I didn't.
You wanted to go to the NWTF show. I had a spare bed in my room.
Well,
And you
yeah.
always tell the story about how I wake up.
Yeah. So I took. I was coaching that night. I had a game. I coached. I drove a rental from wherever, from the game to
Yep.
your place. I stayed the night at a hotel, and then I met you at the car rental place where I dropped it off. You picked me up,
And we drove to Nashville.
we drove to Nashville. We had never spent any. I mean, we had talked on the phone.
A
And
video popped up last week on my phone of me singing John Denver in the rain.
sent that to you.
Did you send it to me? Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's where I learned how special Brandon's mind is.
Yep.
And then
And
so the-
every song that came up, he told me a story about how it related, the music related to
I
a
guess
story.
I'm learning that's a common theme.
It's a
now
common
with me.
theme throughout our relationship.
So then the pandemic hit. So that was January.
So we spent 4 or 5 days together in a hotel room where
No, it was only like 2.
was it three, maybe three.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you went home. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So it would have been Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday morning,
Yep.
you left.
And that was like the first. That was the first time you guys did NWTF, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a
for sure.
big show, and I got to sit on the booth.
20? Yeah,
It was 20, yeah. So
Yeah.
I got to go to that with you guys and kind of
Yep.
see, we were talking to a lot of new customers, and
Yeah.
that was a cool,
But you say I get out of bed fast.
I don't know if you actually sleep, but when, and I guarantee you don't use an alarm, but I honestly, like when it was time to wake up, I can't even explain it. How fast you got from laying to standing to brushing your teeth to like ready to go was,
3 minutes.
I mean, it was incredible. It exhausted me in the like.
Well, I grew up working in a factory, so I take my shower after I get home from work. So really all you need to do is just get up, brush your teeth, throw on some deodorant, get dressed, and
Yeah.
go. So it's like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah,
tops.
it was impressive.
And you're still rolling around in bed like...
I was knocking off the night before, try to, get the cobwebs off.
You did stay out late.
Hitting
You did stay out
Broadway
late.
or whatever it is
Yeah.
in Nashville.
So that would have been February of
2020.
2020. Then the pandemic hit.
Yep.
So then it got to a point where you were supposed to go on a hunting trip with us the fall of 21. Couldn't go.
Kristen was
That's
pregnant.
and among other things,
Yeah.
just couldn't make it happen. So then, last fall, when I gave the gun to give to your dad, we met. But prior to this would have been 24, so it would have been to February of 21, 22, 23, 24. It was 4.5 years that we didn't see each other.
But we talked
almost daily,
yeah,
regularly. And prior to that, we said, let's try to go the rest of our lives with never seeing each other again.
Right, yeah.
So we were going to have this friendship that we promised that we were never going to see each other in person ever again.
Pals. We talked every day. We would FaceTime regularly.
Yeah.
We would send each other Christmas gifts.
But never be in person.
But never meet in person again. Yeah.
I'd get the update every time that you had a phone call. He said, "You got to hear this," and I would laugh. You made my day.
Yeah.
You actually made my day.
Well, every now and again, sometimes even when I'm in a shit mood, I'll call and get a hold of you, and just to make you laugh, it makes me laugh.
It makes me. I'm telling you.
So there's always good stories there, but so you got the shotgun. We got to see each other, and then here we are.
I know, it's amazing.
Yeah. So there's a little special that's going on. Mason, do you think I'm breaking the whatever they call it? Talking to Mason here.
Sure.
When does your call window close?
We're gonna do it at the end of this week, which is when I think you guys have an email going out sometime this week.
Today's Tuesday, so we can probably get this out maybe in the next couple of days, so people can watch and we can talk about this real quick. So we can do like a quick highlight thing.
Sure.
People like the custom calls. When we were first early on the brand, we would have our logo. Other companies would do this, that, the other. But one of the things people keep asking for is like these GK calls, and you decided, hey, let's do it again. Bring it back. So you've got pre-orders going.
Yep.
You're going to close that on this Friday or ish.
Yeah. We've extended it a few times just because we've had a great response with it. We have 2 duck calls, 2 goose calls, one of them being the mallard slayer. Yep. And that's why we did it. Is we had so many of you kept reaching out to me like, hey, do you have any more of these? Because you kept getting hit up for them. And
I give them to all my buddies.
Yeah, and so so we did this run. It's got some different logos. It's got the the different boss logos, the war chief logo, and then we're going to pick 4 random customers that purchase a call. We're going to give away a case of Steel Reserve. And it's going to have the GK logo on the shells, which will be really cool. We've never done that before.
That's awesome.
And those are, a case of shells, $210? So
something like that.
Yeah, so we're giving 4 of those away along, just as a thank you. And so we're really excited. It's all on our Instagram, Facebook, on our website. And then it's going out in the email to you guys or your customers as well.
And then on YouTube.
Yeah. Yep.
So hopefully we can make something cool with that little cut there. But
that's awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming into town.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And now
absolutely.
we're going to go eat lunch at Cracker Barrel.
Awesome.
I knew it. The last time I was here, we talked about Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
I knew it was Cracker Barrel.
All right, lunchtime anyway.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
That's
Yep,
awesome.
thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome.